Time doesn't erase murder. It just hides it better. They said the case was closed. They said no one was watching. But someone always is. This is Santana True Crime.
Welcome to Santana True Crime. In April 1983, Debra Newton was in Louisville, Kentucky, when she told her husband, Joseph Newton, that she found a job and planned to move their family to Georgia. Instead, Deborah vanished with their 3-year-old daughter, never to be seen since. She evaded law enforcement for 40 years after being captured by U.S. Marshals and their local partners. We've got a video of her arrest right here. I'm sure you've all seen it by now, but let's check it out.
Oh, hey!
How you doing, Miss Sharon?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Uh-oh, they're coming for you, Sharon!
They're coming for you. I think that is probably the worst law enforcement joke that we hear every single day, anytime you walk into a restaurant.
Come on, Reggie. What's up?
Well, we're here for you, ma'am. Definitely here for you.
Whoa, why?
I really feel that when she looked at the officer with the why, she knows exactly why. And you can see her stressed, and it's going to be a bad day for her.
Waiting on the detective to get here, but we have, with all the information that we do have, you have a warrant for your arrest.
They're teasing. They have to be.
Ma'am, we're not.
Oh,
We'll go back up.
oh,
You can
I'm
go home.
so sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, go ahead and go home. Thank you.
I think the neighbor honestly thought this was a big bad joke until that very moment when he told her to go home.
I don't understand.
Yes, ma'am. So,
You're Sharon, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you in handcuffs, okay?
Can I take my dog in and get my husband?
We'll give the dog
Go ahead and get your husband, and we'll get your dog taken care of.
You want me to hold the leash for now? I don't want to.
All right, and I'm going to cut it right here, but she ends up being taken into custody, and she is eventually interviewed at the station. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the interview a little bit, but our guest tonight is Wayne. He is the second husband to Deborah, and he's going to give us an inside of what it was like during the marriage, red flags that him and his daughter picked up on throughout their relationship, and give us some thoughts on their future. So next, we're going to check out that interview.
We'll talk, Kim. I'll tell you everything.
No, my husband, is it okay?
Yeah, he's right there. We'll give you a chance to talk to him a little bit. We have a couple questions. Kind of want to start from the beginning. We know you're Deborah. The warrant's already been confirmed out of Kentucky. Okay. We're trying to get in contact with Amanda just because she's still considered a missing person. There's a lot of unanswered questions throughout the years. Multiple agencies that have been working on this case. The FBI, the U.S. Marshals, multiple Sheriff's Office, the Louisville Police Department. So I want to kind of give you the opportunity to just explain what happened, like how we ended up here today.
I don't even know if I can remember all the details. It's a long time ago. But when I was married to him, it got me.
All right, so this video is going to be courtesy of Sergeant Pepper Spray, and the two gentlemen in the room are the investigators from Florida. She's eventually going to get transported back to Kentucky, where the warrants were actually sworn out on, since that's where the crime occurred.
Married. I think I was 17, and things were pretty good. But then he wanted some sort of open marriage.
Okay, I want to point out a few things because I want you to pay attention to she's starting to make these excuses. And I don't know if this is true or not, to be clear, but she says that her husband wants an open marriage, and she's going to go on to tell about how there's these videos and pictures that he takes of her, and that is why she left. Make sure you remember that, because when we talk with Wayne, he's going to give a totally different story. So you're going to see a pattern of her making up these stories and continuing to, she's lying to someone because she's not telling consistent things.
And he took pictures of me. And then when I tried to leave, Amanda was a baby.
We're talking about Joseph.
Yeah,
Okay.
Joseph, my husband. And he took pictures of me with 2 different men, 2 different times, not together, but 2 different times. And said that if I left him, divorced him, he would take those films. They weren't videos, they weren't like film, kind of old-fashioned, sorry. And he would share them and show them to my family, my mom and dad. And so I had an opportunity to run, and I went to Atlanta, Georgia.
What year do you think that it was?
And that's the only part that is consistent with everything, is that her first stop was Atlanta, Georgia. And that's where she goes to get the actual fake documents, and she moves on later.
1983, I think. And the person there helped me to get false identification. And so I just kind of rebuilt a life, because he was really mean. I can still remember the 2 men. I can still remember their names. I can still remember that. But he took pictures.
How did you leave Kentucky? Like under like a false pretense, or did you?
No, I told them I was going to a job.
I think it's also odd that you go to Atlanta, Georgia in 1983 and you already know of how to get fake documents. That'd be an interesting question to ask. I mean, how do you know that guy?
In Georgia, and that I was going to go down there to work, and he was okay with that. My parents weren't real happy, but he was okay with that. And when I got there, I knew that that's how it was going to get away.
How long were you there for?
I don't think it was a whole year.
Okay. So when you created your new identity, was now the name that you went to was Cher. Okay. There's not another name you used throughout the years. Okay. Where did you go after Georgia?
Florida.
Yeah, we're out in Florida.
Tampa. I got a driver's license with fake information that I had from the state of Florida. But then I got a job at a daycare center.
So just some fun facts about Florida. I remember in high school, that's where people would have their fake IDs from, because they used to be black and white. So they were very easy to forge. And so that makes complete sense why she's sticking with Florida identification until later on they upgrade.
And I think during that time, the Social Security number that I was using was not the Social Security number that I have today. I think, I don't remember why, but I do remember having to go to the Social Security Administration and getting a Social Security number at the same time I think I bought my daughter's. And it was easily done because back then you didn't have to have that number when you were born. But for whatever reason, I seem to remember having a reason to change the Social Security number when I was working at the daycare center.
And this is a social you use now.
That's the one I got through the Social Security Department.
That's the one you use now.
Correct.
So how'd you leave Tampa?
I was dating someone and I just wanted to get away. And we kind of sort of just picked a place on the map. And it was Pennsylvania. And I went to Pennsylvania and started working for a restaurant.
I believe this is where Wayne picks up. Wayne did not want to give the state. You'll see that interview in a little bit, where he met her, because at the time that we were recording, this footage had not been released out to the public. And I don't think that he knew that it was public knowledge that Pennsylvania is where they met.
And at the restaurant is where I met Wayne.
How long were you and Wayne together?
I think 10 years.
Others. Did he ever suspect that? Did you tell him the truth, or you just kind of?
No one in this world knows the truth but me. No one. No one.
That's probably the first statement I've heard throughout this entire process that is probably true, that no one knows the real truth except for her, because she's told so many stories.
Knows this story.
And over the years, Amanda, did she go by different names as well, or just Amanda?
No, I mean nicknames. Like Manda.
Did you ever keep up with like your case in Kentucky? Like you never researched it?
Nope, I was afraid to. I wanted to look online and see if my parents were still alive, but I was afraid to. Because I know when you look for things, sometimes there can be little traps out there, and I was afraid to.
Did you know there was a warrant out for your arrest back in the 80s and 90s?
No, I didn't. I know that what I did was wrong. Now that I'm older and wiser, but I didn't see a way out. She asked me for a lot of times. She asked me questions about her father. And as she got older, I kind of told her she needed to stop asking because it could get me killed. One had told her. And
You'll hear Wayne's version of this too when he tries to get information out of her about her background, who the father is of Michelle, who he tried to adopt. We're going to watch a little bit more of this, and then we will switch to Wayne.
For you and Michelle?
you mean like knock on the door question?
Like Joseph, did he ever come looking for
Probably no.
No.
Honestly, maybe he was glad with the distance between us because it left him free to do the things he wanted to do, which was think for the people.
He did come looking for you guys in Georgia. I guess you filed some paperwork there for divorce, and he actually tried to knock on her door to where you guys were living at. Do you remember that at all?
Never.
Joseph, her ex-husband, the first husband, actually hired private investigators to try to find Michelle, and from what I've seen, he's been consistently looking for 40 years.
Never.
And that's kind of two sides. This is what he said throughout the years back in the 90s, and this is what you're saying.
I understand that, but never. Neither did my mother or my father.
And you found, like, or when they assumed that you were going to the job in Georgia, did you go there first and then come back?
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of you went to Atlanta or into Georgia and then.
And there was no more spaghetti because everybody ate it. And he took a knife and bam, slammed the table.
On anything physical or you down?
Yeah.
What all happened?
Oh, he would hurt me.
No.
He would hit me. He would hurt me. He would force me. But most of all was.
Okay, I know I'm jumping around, but this is a clip of Deborah talking about how she was abused in the past by Joseph, her first husband, trying to give another reason of why he left. And she's describing an incident with a knife over spaghetti.
The threats. But yeah,
Tortures and everything.
Yeah. And there was a time, the biggest thing that I remember that has nothing to do with this, but his family, brothers and sisters, were at the house. And I made spaghetti. And he was coming home from work with one of his colleagues, and they were late. And there was no more spaghetti because everybody ate it. And he took a knife and bam, slammed the table. And his family was there. His brothers and his sisters were there. I mean, he was not even afraid to show that side in front of his family.
Do you know a Michael?
Yes,
Okay, who is he to you?
he's the one to help we get the false identification.
Okay. Did he move down to Tampa with you at all, or?
He did not move down to Tampa with me, but I heard rumors that he did move to St. Petersburg. No, never lived with him in Tampa.
Oh, how long were you in Pennsylvania?
Until 2008.
2008?
All right. Enough of this. I think that what I'm trying to get at is that I want viewers to be able to look at this interview or pieces of it, and you can listen to the entire thing if you want to. It's about 40 minutes long. I pulled it off Sergeant Pepper Spray. He's got a YouTube channel, so feel free to go and watch it there. But the main point that I want to emphasize is that Deborah tells a bunch of stories to every single person, and they seem to be different. So we're going to listen to Wayne. He is the second husband of Deborah. He's the one that lived with her in Pennsylvania. So Wayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Wayne, I wanted to start out with when you found out about this incident and your reaction to it.
Well, the night of the arrest, I hadn't seen anything yet, but my daughter, Michelle, called that evening and said, hey, the police were here when I got home from work, and my mom's been arrested. And they told me, I'm not who I thought I was, and that her real name was Michelle Newton. So that's kind of how I found out about that.
So did you have any suspicions about Deborah, or maybe she wasn't the person that she claimed to be?
Yes, I would say that the whole thing came as a shock, but then it really didn't, because I've had suspicions for years, conspiracy theories, and Michelle was an only child, and there was a guy stalking them when I met her and saying, does this person's name ring a bell? Does that person's name ring a bell? And then in addition to that, there were things like when we were married, we were married almost 10 years, and he never ever went to see my family in West Virginia. She had stories about her parents. She was an only child, and her parents were killed in a car accident and some government conspiracy theories. And that Michelle was an only child, and there was a guy stalking them when I met her. And so there was, and that in fact was true. But just a lot of things that didn't make sense. And she was never in any pictures and never did really anything. There were no baby pictures. That was a big thing. Michelle always wanted to know where her baby pictures were. So yes, and then I attempted to adopt her, and she just had no interest in me adopting her at all. It wasn't really a discussion. It was just kind of shut down. So yeah, there were things all throughout the years that made no sense.
When did you meet Deborah, and how did y'all meet?
I met her, I think it was 1987. I was a manager at a restaurant chain, and she was hired at another location to be an assistant manager, and I was her trainer. And then we also had, because of the small company, we had common friends. And then we would hang out every once in a while and have a drink and that sort of stuff. So that's how I met her, and that's kind of how it got started.
And what state was this in?
She would rather I not say right now.
Okay. But
It was not Florida.
Okay. So I've seen interviews where Michelle has talked about bouncing around, and that's why I wanted to ask that question. But you meet her in another state.
Yes.
Well, I
So
think that's safe to say.
they had gone from Kentucky and apparently to Georgia, which I knew nothing about, and then to Florida. And when I met her, she had moved to this other state from Florida.
So you've got a friendship with her. She starts dating, and I'd assume at some point you start to get serious and you're telling each other about your families. Did that ever come up, or did you inquire about that when y'all were first starting?
Yes. I mean, that was kind of from the beginning. I knew that I assumed that what was true, that, her parents had died in a car accident. Also, although some of the other pieces kind of raised eyebrows. She was.
What other pieces would raise eyebrows?
Well, just, some of the stories, and we were in Florida one time, and she's, "Oh, I have a bank account in that bank." I'm like, "Well, why don't we go close it and you can take the money home?" And no, I don't want to do that. And the parent thing was the really odd thing. You could understand if they were killed in an accident, but the backstory behind that was kind of fishy with the government conspiracy. There was one other thing I was trying to remember, but can't remember right now.
Do you mind going into the government conspiracy part? Because that sounds kind of odd.
It did sound kind of odd, and that's really about all I know. Her father was an older person who I'm not sure why they split, was the story. But then her mom and dad were high up in the government, and they died in a mysterious car crash. And she thought it was because of some government conspiracy, because they knew something about something. I don't know. So that's kind of it. I do remember the other piece now. She was, before she came, when she was in Florida, she said she had been in a restaurant robbery where they all had to, lay down on the floor, and guys came in with guns and all that. But that was just kind of odd too. But, you take somebody at their word.
So she tells you about the government conspiracy, and I assume that you're probably questioning that. And then she tells you she was involved in a victim of a robbery.
Yes.
And that's why is is that another reason why she's not putting her information out there, or what part did that play in it?
Uh, she didn't say it directly, but she just avoided things. Like I was,
So you've got a friendship with her, she starts dating, and I'd assume at some point you start to get serious and you're telling each other about your families. Did that ever come up? Or did you
like,
inquire about that when y'all were first starting?
yes, I mean, that was kind of from the beginning. I knew that I assumed that what was true that, her parents had died in a car accident. Also, although some of the other pieces kind of raised eyebrows. She
What
was,
other pieces would raise eyebrows?
well, just, some of the stories and, um, we were in Florida one time and she's, oh, I have a bank account in that bank. I'm like, well, why don't we go close it and you can take the money home? And no, 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 I don't want to do that. And the parent thing was the really odd thing. You could understand if they were killed in an accident, but the backstory behind that was kind of fishy with the government conspiracy. There was one other thing I was trying to remember, but can't remember right now.
Do you mind going into the government conspiracy part? Because that sounds kind of odd.
It did sound kind of odd, and that's really about all I know. Her father was an older person who I'm not sure why they split was the story, but then her mom and dad were high up in the government, and they died in a mysterious car crash, and she thought it was because of some government conspiracy because they knew something about something. I don't know. Um, so that's kind of it. I do remember the other piece now. She was before she came when she was in Florida. She said she had been in a restaurant robbery where they all had to, lay down on the floor and guys came in with guns and all that. But I don't. That was just kind of odd too. But you take somebody at their word.
So she tells you about the government conspiracy, and I
Mhm.
assume that you're probably questioning that. And then she tells you she was involved in a victim of a robbery, and
Yes.
that's why is that another reason why she's not putting her information out there, or what part did that play in it?
Uh, she didn't say it directly, but she just avoided things. Like I was a music director at the church for almost 10 years, and she never went like one single time. Um, she just made, she didn't really, there were no pictures or anything. That's what was unusual.
At what point did you meet Michelle?
That same year, um, she was 8 years old. And it was in the summer, I remember, because we were going to an amusement park and I parked and came up the street. And she said, she's sitting on the porch, said, I've been waiting for you. I'm like, okay. And then this kid. And then we went and spent the day at the amusement park and all that sort of stuff. So that's when I met her.
Does she seem like a typical kid?
Oh, yeah. She was very happy, outgoing. We did a lot of stuff. We like the amusement parks and we traveled and um, she's a very, very normal kid. And I didn't have any reason to suspect anything because at that point, Michelle had owned a house. She had bought a house and she had a car and, Michelle was in school. So there wasn't anything to suspect false identification at that point anyway.
But you mentioned that there's no pictures of Michelle, when you went into the house, right?
Well, I never really looked for that, to be
Okay.
honest. I mean, just came up later, and as Michelle started getting older, she's like, Where are my baby pictures?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, where are those?" And there just weren't any, and that's something that has really weighed on her mind for years.
So, did you start to get more suspicious over the years? And I would so I've been divorced, so I know how this is, but Did you ever ask about Michelle's father or birth father?
Yeah, I did, and the story I got was it was some wealthy older man, and um, that was basically it. I didn't get much more information than that, other than maybe he was perhaps deceased too. I'm not sure about that. It was a long time ago.
Okay. But she's not going into detail about these things.
No, no detail. Anytime anything requiring detail, it would be shut down.
And can you recall any other times throughout your marriage to Deborah that when these kind of odd things would occur or suspicious behavior?
Not offhand. I mean, we had a business and we had taken out loans for things, and she had to provide ID and all that stuff for that, which she did. So there was no reason to suspect anything real deep, but I always knew, and I think Michelle always knew something wasn't quite right.
So she never had any problem producing documents.
No, she had documents. I mean,
Okay.
she worked at the company I worked for. Um, she eventually left there and worked as a food service manager at a nursing home. And I'm sure you had to have ID for that. And I know we had to have ID for loan documentation. And taxes were filed under her name at the time. And she went to work for, I remember, Wells Fargo, thank you. Wells Fargo Bank, and I'm sure they required ID of some sorts. And back when the internet and everything wasn't so prevalent, we traveled in and out of the country on cruises many times. Of course, back then it was much easier to get a false identification and get away with it than it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. With all the technology that are on IDs now, especially with real ID.
Right.
And with Michelle, she had, I assume, documents to be able to enroll in school. And
Michelle was enrolled in school. My understanding was under a false birth certificate. So when Deborah left, and she said these in numerous videos that she went to Georgia where she got false IDs, false social security numbers, and then went on to Florida. And so she had identification. And back then, you couldn't just punch it in the computer and see. Like you go to school with a driver's license and a birth certificate, you assume it's real. But when Michelle later on was looking, she tried to get a copy of her birth certificate from the hospital she was allegedly born in. They said, no, you weren't born here, and we have no idea who you are. And yeah, she was trying to get a passport at that time. But I think at one point she hired a private detective, and they got some tracings back to Georgia, and she thought maybe she found a different name for her mother. But eventually, every time she pressed her mother on it, there was shut down, and there was no response.
what are your thoughts and feelings on this? I mean, it's 42 years, right?
42 years, yes.
Jeez. And how long were the two of you married?
Almost 10 years, I think. We got
Did
married in '88, so probably 10 years.
Did any of these behaviors about making up stories lead to the decline in marriage, or?
No, so we were working our business, and we were working 14 hours a day, and then we had this other friend named Teresa, who was an older lady, and she passed away. And then one day, just after work, and we got home, said, I'm just not happy, and I don't want to be married anymore. And that was the end of it.
With everything going on now with the trial, what are your thoughts on, or potential trial? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Michelle just wants to get to the truth. She doesn't really, um, she's not overly concerned about consequences. And matter of fact, she was very supportive of her mother. But I think after this grand deception of 42 years and all the people's lives that she's impacted, probably mine less so than others, that there has to be some kind of consequence. You can't just be allowed to get away with this. I mean, there's FBI investigations, and Michelle has binders of information where her father never gave up looking for her, and her father's family and Deborah's family never stopped looking for her. And there were a lot of people impacted by this, especially Joe, her father. So I don't think it's something you should just be able to get away with.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I think that's what is so sad. Been away just shows how much love that Joe had for Michelle, is that, he spent decades trying to find her, and that's got to be, and not only him, but law enforcement did. So there's been a lot of work on their end as well. But even when law enforcement, I wouldn't say gave up, but came to a really hard dead end. My understanding is Joe still hired private investigators and kind of continued on with this. I would think that, you're not only looking at the felony charge for the kidnapping, or the custodial interference charges, I guess would be the most appropriate way to say it. But also, if Deborah is opening up credit cards and doing other financial
Right.
transactions, under a false name, I'm sure that that's going to get looked at as well.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, you got certainly credit cards, Social Security, all those years of paying into Social Security under false names. Um, who knows what else? I'm like, I haven't really been in touch with her or her husband. I've seen him a couple of times over the past 25 years, but I can imagine all the implications, not to mention the IRS.
Yeah. And I understand that Michelle is, wanting a peaceful resolution with this. How is she doing, and how's her family doing?
So we try to keep her family out of this as much as possible. Um, she's married. She's quite happy. She's got 3 wonderful children. We see them all the time. Um, he is, I say relentless is probably the word to describe her. And if she can get to the bottom of it, oh, she'll get to the bottom of it. You can rest assured on that. She loves her mom. She supports her mom, but at the same time, she wants truthful answers, and I'm not sure she'll ever get that. And so the longer it takes her to get truthful answers, the more she's going to dig.
Yeah, and that's what I hope for her, is that she knows the truth in all this, and that regardless of what the consequences for her mother, uh, she at least deserves to know what really happened. And I'm sure she won't know the full why portion of it, but uh, I think just knowing who you are and knowing your history and all this is important. I'm glad she's been able to, from what I've been able to see, reconnect with more family members, and they seem to be very welcoming to her, and that's extremely positive. I just, I really feel for Joe and his side of the family, missing your daughter for 42 years.
Right. Well, my understanding is they've been leaving gifts under the tree for her for the last 42 years.
Oh, wow.
Excuse me. And I don't know if you saw the Inside Edition piece last night. There was a reunion piece on there that you might want to take a look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
When she found out she has an aunt, she had no idea that Deborah had a sister. That was complete and total surprise.
Yeah, and that's something we haven't mentioned, is that Deborah had a a side of the family too that I'm sure missed her and was wondering what happened to her
Right.
because she cut off all ties with everyone.
Everything, yes. And I believe it was her sister that they got the DNA match from, and but the first thing her husband said was when she said something about she left her family, and he's like, I didn't even know you had a sister, and they've been married 25 years. It was a pretty large scale, long deception, I should say. And her parents, she didn't know if her parents were dead or alive, and they've unfortunately passed away without knowing what happened to them.
Gosh.
But there are a lot of people impacted by this.
Well, I wish you and Michelle and the entire family the best of luck. Hopefully we'll get a good resolution with all of this. I think that's the best we can ask for. And I really appreciate you coming on and having this talk with us and give us some insight on this.
Sure. Oh, just one more thing. So tomorrow, actually, I'm heading up to see her and to meet Joe, meet her dad tomorrow.
Wow.
That'll be this weekend. We're going to be doing that.
Well, you know, I'm glad that the two of you can connect, and you know, you've got the shared love of Michelle, and you know, I'm sure she'll be focusing on that. But I'm glad that Michelle will have both of you in her life from this point going forward.
Oh, she will.
All right. Well, Wayne, thank you very much, and have a good night.
All right. Thank you.